No one returned when the cold reached 71 Monarchy, not the scientists who believed numbers could protect them, not the soldiers who trusted equipment over instinct, not even the rescue teams who swore they would never abandon their own. At that temperature, the air itself turned hostile. Lungs burned with every breath. Metal screamed when touched, and time slowed into something thick and cruel. Deep in the northern wasteland, a research outpost known only as Station Blackridge went silent in a single night. The last transmission was short, static, a scream cut in half, and one sentence that no one ever forgot. The cold is alive. After that, nothing. Helicopters tried first. Their engines froze mid-air and dropped like stones. Drones followed, but their cameras showed only white, storms and shapes that moved when they shouldn't. Command issued the final order, no more attempts. The zone was declared dead, and yet 3 days later, a lone figure rode into the frozen horizon. No convoy, no flag, no permission. Just a cowboy named Eli Mercer, an old man wrapped in battered leather, riding a horse everyone said wouldn't survive 10 minutes out there. Eli had no military rank, no science degree. What he had was something colder than the storm itself. A promise. His daughter had been at Blackridge. While the world accepted the cold as a boundary, Eli saw it as a challenge. The wind clawed at him like an animal, ice forming on his beard, his eyelashes freezing shut every few minutes. The horse stumbled, hooves cracking on ice that sounded like breaking bones. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, but then he remembered the voices on the radio, saying no one returns. And something inside him hardened, because cowards return. Fathers don't. When Eli finally reached the remains of the station, it looked less like a building and more like something chewed apart by the storm. Doors were bent outward, as if people had tried to escape from the inside. Inside, the cold wasn't just freezing, it was wrong. Frost crept upward, defying gravity, and the walls were marked with handprints burned black by extreme cold. Eli moved slowly, every step deliberate, because rushing in New 71 meant death. Then he heard it, a faint knocking sound. Not metal, not wind. A rhythm, human. Someone was alive. And for the first time since the world gave up, the impossible became real. If this story has you hooked so far, this is the moment your viewers are waiting for. Remind them to subscribe, because what happens next changes everything. The knocking led Eli deep beneath the station, into a lower chamber the blueprints never mentioned. Each step down felt like entering the throat of the earth itself. His flashlight flickered, batteries dying faster than logic allowed, and the cold pressed harder, as if aware of him now. That's when he understood the truth the scientists had missed. This wasn't just weather. Something in the ice was reacting to human presence, feeding on heat, fear, and movement. In the chamber, he found survivors, 3 of them, huddled around a machine still humming softly, its core glowing faint orange like a dying heart. Among them was his daughter, barely conscious, lips blue, eyes hollow but alive. She tried to speak, but her voice shattered into frozen air. One of the scientists explained in broken sentences they had drilled too deep, uncovered a thermal anomaly buried for centuries. When exposed, it didn't warm the land, it inverted it. The colder it became, the stronger it grew. The storm wasn't natural, it was defensive. The cold didn't want witnesses. As Eli listened, alarms began to sound, low, slow, almost like breathing. The anomaly had sensed fresh heat. Eli made a decision no command center would ever approve. He overloaded the machine, knowing it would either neutralize the anomaly or turn the entire region into a frozen grave forever. As the countdown began, the cold attacked violently, walls cracking, ice spears forming from nothing, the temperature dropping even further. Eli wrapped his daughter in his coat, carried her on his back, and led the others toward the surface. One by one they fell behind. The storm took them silently. By the time Eli reached his horse, only 2 heartbeats remained, his and his daughter's. Behind them, the station collapsed inward as the anomaly imploded, sucking the living cold into itself. The storm stopped instantly. The sky cleared. Satellites regained signal. When rescue teams finally arrived, they found only one set of tracks leading out of the white, man and horse, moving against all reason. Official reports said the survivors froze due to exposure. They never mentioned the anomaly. They never explained why the region has never again dropped below 20 degrees C, but locals tell a different story. They say when the cold gets cruel and hope feels impossible. A cowboy once turned back and the cold blinked first. The world thought Eli Mercer and his daughter had returned by sheer luck. News outlets called it a miracle. Scientists called it impossible, and the military called it classified. But Eli knew better. The cold wasn't gone. It had retreated, yes, but it had left something behind, an echo, a whisper, a hunger. Even months later, when spring should have softened the tundra, patches of frost lingered where the anomaly had been, sharp as blades glowing faintly at night. Every so often, people swore they saw figures in the distance, moving impossibly against the wind. When Eli tried to explain, nobody believed him. Friends and neighbors insisted he was exaggerating, that the trauma had warped his mind, but the truth was written in his daughter's eyes, the same eyes that had stared into frozen death and returned. They flickered now with an understanding beyond her years. She could sense the cold, the way it measured, tested, remembered. Eli refused to return to Blackridge. The government had set up a cordon. Satellites watched the perimeter, and drones patrolled endlessly. But the cowboy didn't need permission. He knew that the anomaly had left something behind in the ice, something that would awaken again. He began training, learning survival techniques that no guidebook contained, building improvised heat sources that could resist almost impossible conditions, mapping the northern expanse in ways the researchers never dreamed. Each night he checked the horizon, listening to the silence for whispers. And sometimes, in the dead of winter, when the moon was pale and the wind quiet, he could hear it, the cold speaking. Not in words, but in rhythm and pressure, like a heartbeat inside the ice. One evening, months after their return, his daughter approached him. She had taken to wandering the edges of their homestead in silence, listening to something he couldn't hear. "Dad," she said softly, her breath visible in the freezing air. "It's calling again. Not the same. Stronger." Eli's heart sank. The anomaly hadn't been fully contained. It had learned from them, adapted, and now it was patient. It knew the human weakness of hope and curiosity. That night they packed supplies, tested their thermal suits, and prepared for a journey even more dangerous than the first. This time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about understanding. Eli knew one truth. The cold did not forgive, and it did not forget. The world may have moved on, but he and his daughter would stand against it, together, and for the first time. Eli felt a spark of exhilaration in the freezing wind, because the challenge had returned, and he would meet it head on.